Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today's upload is jam-packed full of mind-blowing proof, information that the government does know about these creatures. They use them as weapons of war and as weapons of intimidation. Before we get into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And folks, they really do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? All right, guys, today's upload is honestly just jam-packed full of information, documented information from the military, actually. Some encounters, and just a lot of evidence that we talk about here on a daily basis. I 100% believe these creatures are being used as weapons of war and intimidation. And I believe that the government/alien agenda has had their hands in possibly creating some of these things, but definitely harnessing them. So first and foremost, last night or yesterday's first upload, I shared with you guys a Q&A with Tom Cassiello. He was a security technician at Dulce. And he talked a little bit about what was seen on the outskirts of Dulce. Question: when exactly was the upper human-occupied level of the Archuleta installation constructed? I heard Dulce was started in 37 to 38 by the Army engineers. Enlarged over the years, most of the work was completed in 65 and 66 to connect tunnels to the Page, Arizona base, site of one of the older underground facilities. The four-corner base is called Paraca. Most of the Native Americans living in that area are aware of the base and could tell us about the underground life forms that are frequently spotted near those communities, Bigfoot and other creatures. That was right on pretty much the second question. It was the second question, actually. And then this was very interesting. They talk a little bit about these large 8-foot kind of humanoids being spotted with lab coats. And his response was they are probably inner earth dwellers/workers. The deeper you get, the stranger the life forms are. The tall men are from subterranean levels. Lower yet are the dwarfed, deformed ones. I do not trust them either. There are other forms that both the tall men and the dwarves fear and loathe. They are similar to Bigfoot in appearance, but extremely violent and enjoy eating whatever they may find while it is still alive. They are subhuman and demented with an IQ of around 15. So right there, kind of skimming the surface, talking about the creatures that lurk around the upper part of these deep underground military installations, and other creatures that are in these subterranean caverns that just lurk about. Not even talking about what is created on level 6 of Dulce Nightmare Hall, which we've all heard the horror stories. Creatures, actually men, women, and children kidnapped, forced into genetic experimentation, slavery, etc., turned into 6-legged, 6-armed creatures that can walk up walls. Hairy, bipedal creatures, 7 to 8 feet tall, that can mimic human voice and cry like a baby. Women that are turned into kind of these milking machines. These are all things told to us by Phil Schneider, Tom Cassiello, Bill Cooper, and more. So these, I would consider those, unfortunately, yes, they are or were human, but now they have become a genetic creation, a creature, unfortunately. I do 100% believe the military uses these creatures, these dogmen, these werewolves. Victor had talked about it. I've finished his book. I've got it in with a publisher right now. But he has shared information with the dogman and werewolf being used as weapons of war. But then again, I had a guy from Texas. I shared his experience the other day that he had seen a UFO with his daughter, chased it, videoed it, sent it to, or tried to contact MUFON, and received a call stating they were from MUFON, and they weren't. Come to find out, time goes by, and he finds out that they didn't even work for the agency. He had one night got up to have a glass of water, looks out his window, and there's this huge quadruped wolf standing next to his mailbox. Shoulder is as high as a mailbox, and it's staring directly at him. And that's just one of the multitude of things that we have all heard. Right now, I'm going to share with you the government connection between it all. And this blew my mind away, and it will blow your mind away as well. UFO expert says wolf-like being looked into his home after nearby sighting. A family of a fighter pilot who witnessed a UFO say that they have seen a wolf-like creature that walks on its hind legs stalking their home. The unnamed pilot was on board the USS Nimitz when they cited the infamous Tic-Tac encounter, named after the shape of the unidentified aerial phenomenon. 2 pilots were en route training mission over the Pacific when they spotted an object shaped like a 40-foot tic-tac. After it was spotted on radar about 100 miles out to sea, one of the pilots had reported that after they returned home, they spotted the strange creature staring into their windows of their home on at least 2 different occasions. News of this sighting was shared by military.com, which draws on extensive interviews with former officials involved in the Pentagon's probe into UFO sightings. They said the 3 active duty service members allegedly witnessed a black void on the land that filled them with fear. Intelligence officers Lakatsky and Kelmer claim the men experienced paranormal activity after leaving the ranch and returned to homes in Washington, D.C. Areas such as orbs, dark figures in their bedrooms at night, and strange noises. The wife and 2 teen children of the sailor who investigated the Nimitz incident claimed to have seen a wolf-like creature that walked on its hind legs, staring into their Virginia home on 2 separate occasions. The United States Navy has admitted it has top-secret video and slides of this infamous UFO incident, but will not release them as they could cause grave damage to national security. Researcher Christian Lambright submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to the United States Naval Office of Naval Intelligence for records relating to the USS Nimitz so-called Tic-Tac encounter of 2004. Video of the encounter was revealed to the public in 2017, and the Navy finally admitted the videos were real as of last November. But another video exists, along with other top-secret records and slides. Mr. Lambright asked the Navy for all those records and report relating to the investigation and detection of anomalous aerial vehicles by personnel involved with the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group operation off the western coast of the United States, November 10th through the 16th of 2004. In his request, he stated, information supportive of my request comes from a former pilot and now writer who has publicly stated he was allowed to see extensive classified Office of Naval Intelligence report on these events prior to the article he published in 2015. Other supportive information comes from a contractor/analysis who has stated that an investigation had been conducted by the GS-15 with the Office of Naval Intelligence. Lambright even offers to pay the United States Navy a maximum of $50 over and above the 2-hour research time and the first 100 pages free provisions of the FOIA for costs associated with his request. Less than 2 months later, December 9th, 2019, the ANI's FOIA PA coordinator, Camille Vestres, sent Lambright an astonishing reply admitting the Navy had further footage, but it was classified. So, you've got a naval officer who investigated the Nimitz incident. He wasn't one of the pilots. He was a naval officer who investigated the event, wanting to know more, like us. What the hell's going on? His 2 teenage children and his wife live in Virginia, and they see a Dogman outside of their window, stalking their home. Victor had told us numerous times that these underground facilities for these dogmen were in Virginia. So then what I found was interesting, the paranormal, right? I've always believed this, and I know many of you do as well, that this is all connected. This all has some sort of connection, some sort of... If it's evil, it's connected. That's the way I look at it, okay? And I'm not saying all dogmen are evil. I don't know. But I know when people see black voids and shadow figures and other crazy things going on in their home, that sounds like evil to me. Orbs, dark figures, and strange noises. Has the government harnessed the paranormal? Why is that so far-fetched to think? I don't think it's far-fetched, and I know many of you don't either. But right there, why is this man who was investigating this Tic-Tac incident now has a dogman staring in his window at home? Not just once. If it was once, I'd be like, maybe. but twice that they can count, that they're aware of. So this little article that I just shared with you the information came from military.com. What did I do? I went to military.com to find the full-on craziness. How believers in the paranormal birthed the Pentagon's new hunt for UFOs. It's connected. It's all connected, my friends. In Oregon, a man said his health deteriorated after a glowing blue orb passed through his body. A family in California reported strange lights and a gray figure with spindly legs in their orchard. A werewolf-like creature allegedly prowled around homes in suburban Virginia. All three incidents were probed as part of a secret Pentagon program investigating UFOs. The program, contracted by the Defense Intelligence Agency, plumbed the connection between the flying objects and the paranormal for 2 years, according to the men who ran it. The Pentagon's new office for what has been rebranded as Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon, or UAP, has deep roots in the paranormal. Underneath the Washington defense talks about threats from China and Russia, there is a conviction among advocates that strange objects glimpsed by troops and military equipment are part of a mysterious phenomenon that stretches back decades, or perhaps throughout humanity's history. As a stigma over flying saucer talk lifts, the military connection has taken UFO mainstream, but has become more open about those beliefs. People say, well, we are only going to look at the nuts and bolt machine. Well, you better come up with a lot more physics. It's far more advanced than we are capable of now, said James Lakatsky, a now retired DIA intelligence officer who set up the UFO program that ran for 2008 to 2010. And then there's others who say, well, there's nothing more than they are nothing more than ghosts, part of the paranormal world. No, they are a hybrid of both, he said. Lakatsky, a bespectacled man who a colleague described him as looking like a rocket scientist, started research right out of college on missiles and directed energy weapons such as lasers in the early 2000s. He headed up the DIA annual missile threat assessment. He originally started the research out of concern that UFOs pose a national security threat, specifically to the United States missile defense systems. You know what was on the internet at the time? It just sounded like advanced technology to me, Lakatsky said. I said, I'm interested. We need to do something about this if it is true. And I spoke to my management, and it started from there. Lakatsky's later work unearthed the case of a Navy fighter pilot with the USS Nimitz strike group who saw a mysterious flying tic-tac shaped object zip away while training in the Pacific. The incident and witness testimony became key evidence after it was leaked in 2017 by former Pentagon and CIA officials that prod the government into taking UFOs serious. Their effort pushed the UFO issue into crucial ways that eventually convinced lawmakers something needed to be done. I don't care what anybody says. It is a story of the millennia, and it needs to be talked about, said Jim Semivin, a retired operations officer for the CIA, Doctorate of Operations, who co-founded To the Stars Incorporated, a group that helped expose and publicize the 3 Navy videos in 2017 and helped drive the response in Washington. In the beginning, the Pentagon's unusual UFO program echoed classified DIA and CIA programs in the 70s and 80s that explored whether human physics could use the power of their minds, called remote viewing, to spy on Soviets and other foreign adversaries from far away. The earlier programs spanned 25 years and were featured in a nonfiction book, The Men Who Stare at the Goats, which was made into a fictionalized movie in 2009. The programs were ultimately terminated in 1995 and deemed ineffective for intelligence operations, according to the Federation of American Scientists. For the UFO program, Lukatsky would work closely with Colm Keller, a contractor who ran its daily operations. Keller was trained in Ireland as a biochemist and cancer researcher and spoke with remnants of the Irish lilt, and spoke with remnants of an Irish lilt, whatever. So, accent. He had spent years working with Robert Bigelow, a wealthy Vegas real estate mogul and aerospace company owner with deep interest in the UFO and the afterlife. Keller and Bigelow already had history of investigating UFOs and paranormal phenomena. The Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies was a lead contractor in the DIA program, formerly called Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Application Program, or AAWSAP. Lukatsky and Keller recounted their work with interviews with military.com, having previously published a book about the program called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon that was cleared for release by the Defense Department. If you've never read the book, get the book. It is amazing. Amazing. Expletive amazing. The two men were fans of remote viewing program, using a pseudonym in their book that was a nod to one of the group's physics. In a stroke of happenstance, one of the biggest UFO cases in history literally walked through the door on the first days of the new UFO initiative. The existence of the program, funded with off the book's money authorized by late Senator Harry Reid, was first reported by the New York Times in 2017, though the paper largely left out the paranormal research that conflated the DIA work with a later program. It was in the early 2008, just as the AAWSAP was getting off the ground and Keller was interviewing program manager candidates in the Vegas office. A Marine Corps FA-18 Hornet fighter pilot was looking for a job, shared an incredible story. At the very end of the interview, he drops the bombshell on me that actually he had been a part of the Nimitz carrier strike group, Keller said. And of course, I immediately perked up because, it's pretty interesting. The Marine pilot's story is now widely known. Pilots and crew reported tracking unusual objects on the radar in a military training area off the coast of California in 2004. An infrared video purports to show one chute quickly out of view. Commander David Fryver of the Navy pilot, who publicly describes the episode in 2009, has said he scrambled to investigate and encounter an oblong white object that flew without any visibility, propulsion system, or wings. It mirrored his flying before disappearing before his own eyes. Part of his account was backed up by Commander Alex Dietrich, a junior pilot at the time, who said she witnessed the object for about 10 seconds. Fryver said in interviews he believed the object was not from this world, further fueling speculation. Some of the pilots involved in this were actually briefing Senate Armed Service Committee members and staffers, and Senate Intelligence Community members and staffers, Keller said, about the impact of the Nimitz incident would have years later. So it is considered sort of a sentinel case where the credibility of the so-called UFO phenomenon was introduced at a very high level to Capitol Hill. In early 2009, Lukatsky and Keller sent a sailor whom they described as a senior engineer in the Naval Intelligence on a 4.5-month investigation of witnesses and evidence in the Nimitz case. That work would remain secret for years before being leaked by others. After the Nimitz investigation, the sailor and 2 Marines were sent to the Utah property known as Skinwalker Ranch, where Bigelow, the owner, had funded his own private research of UFO and paranormal activity over the previous decade. Skinwalker Ranch sits on just over 500 acres of steep land near the town of Ballard in northeastern Utah. It has long been an alleged epicenter of strange happenings dating back to the tales of Native American Ute tribe and the Navajo people who believe in a malevolent witch called Skinwalker who can transform into animal-like creatures. The ranch would later be subject to a paranormal reality bullcrap show under another owner. The 3 active duty service members whose identities had been concealed by researchers at the Defense Department allegedly witnessed a black void on the land that filled them with fear. So that black void is like a portal. What people have talked about in that land, in that region, the hunter that I talk about, that's sitting just a couple of miles away from Skinwalker Ranch, but still on Ute property, Ute land, sacred Ute land. He's sitting up on a berm, watching, waiting, hunting, and this portal opens up, this black void, and this animal drops out and runs the opposite way. Thank God. Black void on the land, filling them with fear. Lakatsky and Keller claimed the men experienced paranormal activity after leaving the ranch and returning to their own homes in Washington, D.C., such as orbs, dark figures in their bedrooms, and strange noises. The wife and 2 teen children of the sailor who did the investigation at the Nimitz incident claimed to have seen a wolf-like creature walking on 2 legs, staring into their Virginia home on 2 separate occasions. Military.com asked the Pentagon whether it could confirm the paranormal research. No was the one-word response from Sue Goff, the department's spokesperson on UFOs. She pointed to the boilerplate disclaimer on Lakatsky and Keller's book, which says the department's clearance for publication does not imply factual accuracy. Right there is just the proof. Like, these men, this one man goes to investigate and his family's targeted. These other men go to Skinwalker Ranch to share the information, and they see a void open up in front of them. Who wouldn't be filled with fear? Who wouldn't be? These are men that have flown in jets that fly at the sound of speed. You know, I have honestly never been in a jet that could fly. I've only flown once when I was a child, when I was a baby. I don't remember it. But I have an absolute fear of flying. In my eyes, a pilot who flies not just a jetliner, but a jet fighter that goes so fast it breaks the sound barrier, that is a badass person in my eyes. And they see this, and that have been in war, and they see this portal open, and it fills them with absolute fear. That is terrifying. Let's see. I know a lot more of this is just based on the UFO information. I don't want to kind of oversaturate it, but I'll look for some of the very interesting. Here it is. Hang on one second. Actually, this information is too good. I'm going to share it all. Lou Elizondo, an Army veteran and former counterintelligence special agent with the high and tight haircut and rectangular stripe of goatee, loved his smoke and mirrors work in the places like the Middle East and Afghanistan. His father, a Cuban exile, participated in the failed Bay of Pigs. In 2008, Lakatsky met with Elizondo in an office in Roslyn, just across the Potomac from D.C. The DIA analyst had identified Elizondo as a potential recruit into the DIA program. He looked at me very seriously and said, "So, what do you think about UFOs?" Elizondo said in an interview with military.com, "I told the truth." I said, "I didn't think about it." He said, "What do you mean? You don't believe in them?" I said, "I didn't say that. What I said was, I don't think about that." Elizondo did not end up joining with Lakatsky, but he did go on a run to the Pentagon's smaller in-house UFO program created when the DIA program ended. It wasn't involved at all with Skinwalker, and that was a conscious decision to do that, Elizondo said. It was a decision we had to make because there were some antibodies in the Department of Defense that were starting to become concerned about the focus of AAWSAP and what it was doing. The Nimitz Tic-Tac investigation done by Lakatsky's team was transferred to Elizondo, who was then running what was called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP. Right there. Right there is proof that the government was afraid. And Elizondo, it wasn't involved with Skinwalker, but there was a conscious decision to do that, Elizondo. It was a decision we had to make because there were antibodies in the Department of Defense that were starting to become concerned about the focus of AAWSAP and what they were doing. So the Department of Defense was shitting their pants, literally saying this information is going to get spilled out to the people that are our country, and, you know, the upper echelon of the military, and, you know, the senators and congressmen who don't look at us like we are anything, you know, yet we elect these bozos into office and pay their salaries. But we are subpar to them. You realize that. I know all of you do. But what would happen if the public knew what was going on? Well, we got to put an end to it. So let's harass these people. Let's send a dogman to these people's house. Let's send, you know, what's interesting to me is there was a woman that I talked to, and her dad was in the very high up in the Army. And he worked at Red Sands military base in Alabama. And something had happened, and one night she woke up and her room was bright red. Like, you know, those old 80s heaters that would, you know, that on the side of the wall, and they'd radiate the light and heat. But she didn't have one of those in her room. But her whole room was like this bright red. And her dad was high up in the military. I don't know. It all fits. It all fits. And these are puzzle pieces right here. Working with a very, very small group of people in the Pentagon, Elizondo uncovered another series of military experiences with the UFO that would form a second piece of crucial evidence, leading to the legislation in December. Pilots training with the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt in Atlantic between 2014 and 15 reported picking up and sometimes seeing visual objects on a daily basis that appeared to be traveling at extremely high speeds and high altitudes. In a near mid-air collision, a pilot reported seeing what looked like a sphere with a cube inside, according to New York Times. By 2017, Elizondo said he was trying to brief the Defense Secretary Jim Mattis personally about the incidents with no luck. He kept briefing Mattis' staff and brought in the pilots and radar operators. The problem was nobody wanted to tell the boss, and I think hindsight was 2020. The rationale was that this is a man who is highly respected. This is a man who everybody trusts. if we brief him on the fact that there are these things called UAPs, or in a vernacular UFO, if he is asked about it by a member of the press, he'd have to say yes, and that could hurt his credibility. Who cares, man? Wouldn't telling the truth be better for his credibility if you think about it? But yet our government doesn't work for us, and they stopped a long time ago. I don't know when. I think it's around the FDR and Eisenhower. Truman was a little schmuck. He was right in the middle of that era. So I think it was right after Eisenhower is when shit got real bad for our government. Truman was the key point, though. Truman was when the government realized they could control everything. And then Eisenhower put a cog in that. And then when he was out of office, that's when everything went the way it is now. Despite the compiled accounts and videos, UFOs remained a taboo topic with many within the Pentagon. So instead, Elizondo worked to get infrared cockpit video of the Navy encounter cleared with public release. Then he quit the Pentagon in protest and emerged in public as a whistleblower. The 3 videos were leaked to Chris Mellon, a former Deputy Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, in the Pentagon parking lot. The New York Times broke the story that the Pentagon had UFO program in December of 2017 with Elizondo and Mellon as key sources. At the same time, both men joined the To the Stars company, which jointly published the Nimitz and Roosevelt Navy videos with the newspaper, causing a global sensation that hasn't abated. What's belief got to do with it? To the Stars was a new company formed with the hopes of publicizing the belief that UFOs, an age-old phenomenon that could hold profound meaning to the human race. It was co-founded by Semi Van, the CIA operations officer, and Tom DeLonge from Blink 182. Elizondo and Mellon were original members, along with Hal Puffoff, a physicist who worked with the DIA and CIA on psychic remote viewing in the 70s and 80s. We all knew that this did not belong to the military, that this phenomenon and these UAPs are appearing everywhere, said Semi Van, who also did consulting work for Elizondo when he headed the Pentagon AATIP program. They're appearing over military sites, nuclear sites, over carrier task force groups, and things along that line. But they're also appearing all over the world in general. DeLonge, who spent decades researching UFO lore before forming the company, has been public about his beliefs in the paranormal aspects of alleged encounters and that a non-human intelligence has been influencing people throughout history. He also indicated the military may have recovered parts of UFOs and secretly working to understand them. So obviously that's true. We know that. Mellon, the former Pentagon official who helped make the 2017 Nimitz video public, brushed off questions about the earlier DIA research in an interview with Military.com. A descendant of the wealthy Mellon family of Pittsburgh. He said his family name has led many to assume he grew up wealthy, but that he was actually raised in the inner city of Chicago under difficult circumstances. They think I grew up in a nice home in the countryside with a limo or something, and that was anything but the case, Mellon said. He served in the Pentagon under Clinton and Bush and worked on Capitol Hill for more than a decade, eventually rising to Minority Staff Director of the Senate Intelligence Committee. His knowledge of the national security apparatus and facility with the language of the Pentagon, Congress, in Washington quickly elevated him to a top expert who was loudly blowing a national security lexicon. He compares the overall Pentagon response to UFO reports to missing radar indications of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. I found out that this had been going on not just for months, but for years and dozens of incidents off the coast, including a near mid-air collision. And the secretary didn't know. Congress didn't know. Senior officials don't know. I mean, are you kidding me? This is such a grotesque failure of curiosity and the system. In 2017, Mellon began the effort to convince members of Congress to act, though he said he avoided any mention to lawmakers of the early research by Lukatsky and Keller or the beliefs of the founding members of To the Stars. Those topics would be counterproductive. You had to prove some political cover for these people, some legitimate basis on national security grounds for them to engage and say, okay, I'm willing to take a brief, or I'm willing to look at this, Mellon said. You don't go in there and say, oh, we've got little green men or people coming out of interplanetary portals, or, woo-woo kind of stuff. You wouldn't get to first base. I want you to put aside all that stuff that people talk about, extraterrestrials and all that. Senator Marco Rubio, Republican, Florida, the top Republican of the Senate Intelligence Committee, said in 2020 interview broadcast by a local news. This is a very simple equation for me. There are things flying over our military installations. We don't know what they are or where they come from. Meanwhile, many in the public mistook the military's acknowledgement that the Navy videos were authentic as an admission of UFO's existence. So, right there is a lot of information. By saying these videos are authentic, and that's true. I remember when those videos came out, and many of you guys do as well. I mean, I probably got 30, 40 emails just saying, Jeff, did you see this? Yeah, of course I did. I live on the same planet you do. About, these Tic-Tac things flying through the air and, the Navy admitting that these videos are real. And people did. They said. They finally admitted to it. Well, they didn't. If you really think about it, the Navy and the U.S. government did not. Because not once did they say, what they said was the videos were real. But they never said that they were manned by an alien life form from a different planet, or an alien life form from an interdimensional area. They just said they were real. That's it. You see how quick. And I'm not saying that it is true. But do you see how quick people, everyone, will jump and misinterpret something? Or interpret it the way they want to. And immediately say, because I said it. But I've always said the military and government has never said once that there are existence of aliens. They'll admit to the UAPs and the UFOs. But they won't say they are manned by an alien from outer space or interplanetary, interdimensional, whatever, wherever they come from. But once again, during these investigations, why are a Dogman stalking a naval intelligence officer who is investigating this? Why are people seeing why are military, naval, and Marines seeing shadow people in their freaking rooms or a portal pop open? Well, The government has harnessed this. They probably have for a long time because of their treaties with these Dracos, the Greys, and every other kind of whatever you want to call them, alien, the agenda. They are using the paranormal and cryptids as weapons of war and weapons of intimidation. And right there is proof. Tons of it. Let's get into some encounters. This experience happened April 30th of 2022 in Birdsboro, Pennsylvania in the Birdsboro Preserve. This area is just north of French Creek State Park, and the forests intersect with one another. There are roughly 15 to 20 square miles of dense natural woodland in this area. It is one of the largest forested areas in southeastern Pennsylvania. It was a crystal clear, warm spring day, and my 12-year-old daughter wanted to learn how to trout fish. We decided to go up to Hay Creek, which runs for 13 miles through French Creek State Park and through the Birdsboro Preserve. We parked at the north end of the preserve on an old Route 82, now called Hay Creek Road. We hiked up into the old road past the still active larger quarry and continued up about a half a mile past it. We found a spot where she could practice wading into the stream in a safe, shallow area of the stream with semi-fast water. There were a lot of people walking, hiking, and horseback riding that day. Not a cloud was in the sky. We fished the spot for a couple of hours, slowly moving back down the stream. At one point, while I was sitting on the bank enjoying the stream and nature while my daughter was fishing, I heard a loud crash like a tree was falling over behind us. It was a bit strange because I didn't hear any chainsaws and it sounded like a huge tree coming down. It was only a few hundred feet behind me, and it was super loud. Being an avid extreme outdoorsman for 3 decades, you know when things are out of place. This was totally different from a falling over and then silence. This went on for a couple of minutes. I stood up and looked around in the direction of the sound was coming, but saw nothing. I said to myself, that's a bit strange, and it just stopped. 30 minutes later, I heard the same thing again. This went on for another 2 minutes. Now I'm puzzled, thinking, what the hell is going on? This is definitely not normal. I said to my daughter, let's start heading back down the stream and find another spot. I still didn't see anything unusual, but was on high alert. I thought to myself, it could be a deer up in the back across the road, but this sounded. Then I heard a giant crashing through the woods, as it was very loud. This time it was definitely closer to us. We walked 200 yards down the trail and started hearing it again. It was even closer than the past 2 times. We stopped and looked up toward the quarry in the direction of the sound and still saw nothing. I said, we'll cross the stream and fish down around the bend. The spot where you cross the stream is about 30 feet wide and very slippery. We took it slow because the water was a bit high for my daughter. We were about halfway across and all hell broke loose, with the sound of tree branches breaking again. It took us about 90 seconds to cross the stream, and I was holding her hand to help her. The whole time the sound is still going on, and I'm looking back to see nothing because we are about 20 feet below the quarry where the old bridge was. Where we cross the stream, there is about 6 to 7 foot berm to step up to the road level. I get up first and help my daughter get up with my hand, and I see something moving in the distance out of my peripheral. I turn and look and see nothing at first. Then in the distance, where the sound is coming from, I lock on to a 40-foot pine tree at the top of the quarry, swaying violently, side by side, at least 5 feet each way. I pointed to my daughter and said, holy crap, what the hell is that? Look. The next 40 to 50 seconds would change our lives forever. We were watching the pine tree shake for 10 to 15 seconds. Then I saw what I thought was an arm reaching out of the tree. It grabbed a bird, which I believe was a turkey buzzard. All of a sudden, this thing jumps from the pine tree to a big oak tree about 10 feet away and starts climbing the outside of the canopy. It pivoted around somewhat like a spider on top of the canopy and disappeared into the branches of this large oak tree. Keep in mind, the leaves are just starting to bud on the trees, and you can see movement in the tree branches. This was maybe 300 feet away. The whole time, branches are breaking, very large branches, 2 inches thick. This goes on for 10 or more seconds, and then this thing jumps out of the tree. Now, these trees are at least 40 feet high. Plus, it falls another 15 to 20 feet into a 60-degree incline of rocks. So it's about 60 or so feet this thing fell. I thought it was dead. I'll never forget the sound of the impact. This thing hit super hard and rocks started flying down the side of this quarry incline at least 10 feet. When it fell out of the tree, this creature landed on all fours. This thing was lying flat, and it was a bit dazed or winded. Then this thing stands up bipedally on its hind legs. And it's, I don't even know, 10 feet? I'm thinking that this thing should be dead. I'm thinking bear, mountain lion, Bigfoot. So it stands up, and then it goes back down to 4 feet and jumps like a toad or a frog would. This thing clears 20 feet of ground in total, not even trying, as well as jump in height about 8 to 10 feet. It's on all fours again, flat like a frog, and then it dropped to this bird that it had in its left hand. Keep in mind, this thing landed facing away from us on the right side of us, with its back to us and running away parallel to our left. It then reaches out with its left hand and grabs the bird and pulls it back into its chest. The arms on this thing are at least 6 feet plus in length. It was human-like hands and legs. The hands had to have 2 to 3 inch claws on their fingers. As it grabbed the bird, it turned its head to the side, and I saw the side of its head and face. This thing was bald from the neck up. It had a canine-style snout or nose with an upper jaw with overhang, with a very long upper teeth like fangs on a werewolf. No joke about it. This thing was bald from the neck up. It had a canine-style snout or nose with an upper jaw with an overhang, with very long upper teeth like fangs on a werewolf. No joke. This thing, when it stood up from heel to hip, was 7 feet in height. And from hip to shoulder, another 3. From heel to the top of its head, it was at least 10 feet. The head was like a human head, but had pointed ears like a dog's, not on the top. It had ears where a human's ears would be. They were longer and pointed. It had fur like a deer in length, very short and brown, grayish black. The skin was gray in color. The creature was very skinny though, like it was starving or not healthy. Very skinny except for its forearms and legs were toned. It didn't have a tail. The thing stands up again bipedally and takes a step, like a track runner jumping a hurdle, and clears 15-foot rock face again, easily 6 to 7 feet in height, about 15 feet in length. Takes another 5 to 6 steps, and went crashing through the woods, and we never saw it again. I stood there in total disbelief, trying to process what the hell that thing was. I'm a no-fear kind of guy, and this thing scared the living shit out of me. I'm standing there completely frozen with fear, trying to make sense of what the hell just happened. I almost lost myself with fear because I never had that type of fear ever, and I had to talk myself out of it. After 2 minutes of sheer confusion, I snapped out of the fear factor, and I was now in adrenaline survival mode. My number one concern was my daughter and getting us out of here alive, because this thing ran the same way we'd have to walk to our car. Keep in mind, this was a busy day with people out from being cooped up all winter. Whatever this thing is, violent and super strong, to the point, the right thing to do is to warn people about this. I tell you this thing makes a full-grown tiger look like a mouse. No joke.
My daughter's confused about what happened. I was very concerned for her safety. As we were slowly walking back, I actually started to call 911, but never did because no one would believe me. I think I made it up. I saw a few people on the way back and asked them if they seen a big animal come this way, and they all said no. A message for all the people out there. One thing I want to say is, I have been in a lot of national parks and state forests, and never once seen anything like this. Take everything I thought I knew about the wilderness and threw it right out the window and started over again. These things are 1,000% real, and they are in our backyard, not in some national parks or extreme remote areas. They are very close to us, so please be mindful of your surroundings. I'll never step into the woods without a firearm again. This changed my life, and I'm on an amazing journey to find serious answers. And for all of you who have seen a crazy creature and struggle with it, you're not alone. Welcome to the club of no return. Keep an open mind and talk to good people who can help you.
All right, guys, like I said in the intro, a upload full of just mind-blowing information. I know that I'm amazed. I'm not amazed with anything that I read in the article. What I'm amazed at is the article actually solidifies all of my theories about what's been going on and how everything is connected. And if you really think about it, Skinwalker Ranch is the place where it all happens. You've got paranormal, cryptids, UFO, UAP. It's all there. Ghosts, shadow men, Dogman, Bigfoot, animal mutilations. And it's all in one spot. And that's what started to get me thinking that it is all connected. Is there an deep underground military base around Skinwalker Ranch? Hell yeah, there is. Hell yeah. There's a few in Utah. I gave you the list a couple days ago. I tried to dig out the information that I had on the dumbs, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, it's all connected. We all know it is. That's some proof that it is. Imagine being a naval intelligence looking into the USS Nimitz Tic-Tac and having a friggin' Dogman lurk around your house to warn you. That's what it was. It was a warning. Don't talk. Don't talk, buddy. We know where you live. We see your family. I hope you enjoyed this upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go. And honestly, what makes it a place for people to share their theories, ideas, and experiences, ridicule and judgment-free, simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers or the truth, and God bless.